Today is April the 4th, 2021, and we are here today with Rich Herman, who's running for Amarillo City Council Place 4. Rich, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me here today, Dan. It's a beautiful Sunday. It's beautiful Easter. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this and everything. And it's just awesome. I was always wondering about where you did these interviews, and this is a beautiful place you've set up here. And I appreciate y'all, the film guy, and you inviting me down.
Let's start off by telling the voters who Rich Herman is, where you came from, how you grew up, a little bit about you and what you've done with your life, and then we'll go into why you're wanting to serve on the city council.
Okay. Well, of course, my name's Rich Herman. Right here from Amarillo, there's a street called Buchanan Street. There's a place called the Mavericks Club right there. Catty Corner, a lot of people who come downtown, they kind of know where that is, and they know there's a big old asphalt parking lot where the Burlington Railroad guys park now. That used to be a 2-story house, and we had 4 generations living under one roof. As a kid, I learned a lot of wisdom early in life from my grandmother, of all people. She was kind of a servant to everyone. She'd feed the family. Times were tight when you have that many people under one roof. And, I always remember growing up that, even though the food was short when we would be finished, we had homeless people back then, but they were called hobos, and she would go on the back porch, and the hobos would come across, from the railroad track, and she'd feed them. And somehow we always had enough food to go around. And she kind of, to this day, the words I always remember her telling me was, you always take care of your own backyard first. And what she meant by that was we feed our family first, and then we take care of the others in our community as best we can. And anyway, my father was assigned out here to the Air Force Base, and my mother met him, and that's how I came into this world. And Mama went to the nursing school here and everything. And I think as a 3, 4, 5-year-old kid, I walked all over this town back. I remember the cobblestone streets. I remember all of it, and I loved it. And anyway, later on in life, as I grew up and everything, I joined the military like most of us do. I wanted to go travel and see the world, and I was very blessed. I've been all over Europe. I've been in some places that I didn't really like, combat zones and stuff like that. But overall, it's given me a lot of life experience and a lot of knowledge and everything. I've served as a justice of the peace here. I didn't really care for it at all. I've not always had a good life, but I've always had a purposeful, and it's kind of a blessing or luck, like I've always had some guardian looking after me. I always give the glory to the God on that, because I've been in some situations where there's no way I should have made it out, and I always come out of it all doing good, and that's where I've gained a lot of knowledge. I've managed operations in excess of over 500 million, been nationally recognized for some of these positions I've served in. I've served as the district commander for the Veterans of Foreign Wars all over the West Texas area. Currently, I'm with the Lions Club as the president of our disaster relief, and it's something I'm passionate about. And years back, we had a bunch of wildfires in the area, and we lost some people, which was really sad. But I identified the fact that we had communities and our first responders for a few days that, even though they were there on site, it took us a while to react and start getting people food and water to the areas. And so I've, along with some friends of mine, I'm not going to mention their names because I don't think they want me to be politically connected, or if they do or don't, I don't want to, rock that boat. But we talked about it, and they have the same passion, and so that's something that I do now. And all around, I'm just like everybody else. I get up in the morning, and sometimes the hot water's gone, and that determines the kind of day I'm going to have. Or maybe somebody used the towel that I thought would be hanging there when I got out of the shower. or maybe the alarm clock went off a little late, it never goes off late. We shut it off, hit that snooze button. But yeah, I'm just like everybody else. I make mistakes, but luckily for me, I live a very purposeful, focused life. Usually when I get something in my mind, I'm very, very determined. I have two things that I always fall back on. A lot of people have something in their life that they fall back on. Mine is actually 2 Bible verses. When the world gets rough and things are falling apart around me, I always reflect on that. He is kept in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. And then my whole life is based on, It's 1 Corinthians 13. He left them 3 things. It was faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. And I tell everybody, my faith makes me strong, keeps me disciplined and focused, and then my hope is always for a brighter future for people and everything. But I also remember that we live in this moment. Don't get so far ahead that you don't see what's going on around you at that time. And then my love of my fellow man and my love of my community, my love of everybody. And, that was the greatest gift we were ever given. And when I focus on them 2 things, it always seems to bring me back to center. And I can go on and on, Dan. I've lived a blessed life. I have a beautiful wife, Brianna. I have grandchildren that, I don't get to see often because they all live away from here. And I blame that on the job opportunities in our area. It's not that we don't have job opportunities. It's the fact that they're not really good paying jobs. I mean, you send them to college and everything, and they got these degrees that they can't use locally. They have to take them elsewhere so they can get paid what they've earned. And so there's a lot of things about me. I'm not a very complicated. I'm a very simple person. You're going to ask me some questions, I'm sure, and my solutions are, I hate people telling me problems, Dan. People will come up to you and go, the trash cans. That's one that's a pet thing of mine. When I hear people talking about trash here in Amarillo, I'm like, oh my God, this is the easiest problem to solve facing this city. Quit bringing me problems without bringing me the solution.
Right.
That's a pet peeve of mine. And if I'm elected, I'm going to focus on actual members that work for the city, and we're going to relearn some thinking. I'll probably start out with the department heads, and I will give up the time. My wife will tell you I get up at 3:30 every morning, and I stay up till the job's done, whatever I had in mind, sometimes 11, 12. So I will get the job done. I served, 30 years in the military, and I'm used to 365 and 24/7. It doesn't bother me. I've been asked a lot on why I'm doing this, and I'll tell you, it's a calling. I felt called to do this, okay? And I'd like to hear your questions, Dan.
All right. Well, you served as Justice of the Peace, but
yes, sir.
You mentioned that you didn't really like the job. What was it about being JP that you didn't like?
For me, it was really, really hard going on the inquests. That's when someone dies and everything. It's not that I haven't been around that, in combat I was around it and everything, but it's different when you go in a house and a child has died and the family's there and they're all emotional, and you're trying somewhere in your heart to find the words that will provide them comfort. In reality, there's nothing you can say that's going to provide them that comfort needed. And it was an emotional strain on me. I mean, it was really emotional, and I didn't like that aspect of it. I didn't mind in the courtroom because, I've always used the rule, judge as you would want to be judged. I didn't mind magistrate in the jail. I love doing weddings. That's a celebration to me. And, there's a whole lot of things that JP does that they don't do in other courts. And that's why they called it the People's Court. And I always tried to keep that in mind, when I would be serving or sitting on the bench or magistrate in the jail. Maybe this guy didn't have the recommended bond, and I'd work with them and try to adjust that bond depending on the type of crime. And of course, you always look at when you're magistrating, what's going to happen if you bond this person out. Are they a danger to the public, danger to our neighbors? So there's a lot going on there. I didn't mind all that. Like I said, it was the inquests. It really took a toll on me, but it wasn't really the death of that person. It was the toll that it took on the family members, and I just felt deep inside that I needed to somehow fix everything, and we know that's impossible.
So you didn't like the emotional strain that it put on you and the families, and it'd be a tough situation.
It was.
People don't realize how important the JP position is and what all they do. That's a big position. But so is city council. What I'm trying to convince the voters, and I think most of them know it, but it just hasn't really hit home with them, how important our local elected officials are. To me, they're more important than our federal. They're more important than our state. It's our county and our city that's important. So we have a lot of people and some really good candidates running for all these positions this time. I'm very pleased to see that. So what is it that sets you apart from the other candidates in place for, and what is it that you want? What are some of the main issues that you see facing the voters that you'd like to tackle, and what are your solutions to some of those issues?
That's an hour-long answer, Dan.
Well, we can take them one at a time.
Okay.
Let's take the trash issue that seems to be some of the forums that we've had lately. We hear people bringing up the issue of the trash, which I didn't understand was that big of a problem, but apparently a few of the voters, it's a big deal. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, it's a big deal because the media has made that a big deal. It's kind of funny, and I'm not attacking the media or anything, but we focus what's given attention to. If they had picked crime, which is the real big deal in our community, then we would all be focused on crime. But they picked something that is so easy to solve, the trash. I mean, I know we live in Amarillo, Texas, and the wind's always going to get us, but there's things we can do as a community. First off, just simply policing behind ourselves. But when it comes to these trash cans, it's not as big an issue as people would think. I have a friend that lives over by the railroad track, and for years he had a dumpster sitting in his front yard. Mm-hmm. Well, every time a kid would carry out the trash, we know how our kids are, and maybe not all kids. I'm not stereotyping or getting all unpolitically correct or whatever it is, but
they're 50-year-old kids.
They tend to miss the trash sometimes or don't close the lid, then the trash blows out. Well, then that's in your yard, your neighbor's yard, and everything else. So, and the reason the dumpsters were in the front yard, because there's a right-of-way and all that, and so there's no alleys that butts up against the railroad all around town. So you don't have an alley, okay? Right. So you didn't have a dumpster in the back. Them people are happy to have them push out trash cans. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they wish they were a little heavier, but, this is Amarillo. We can adapt and overcome.
Right.
There was some complaints about, well, we have an alley, and then the city councils, well, they can't back out. Well, get a ground guide. Come on. If you got two people in that trash truck, one of them can get out and ground guide you back out. So there's
I don't think I don't think they've ever had an issue. And now with the cameras on the back of the trucks, man, that makes backing a truck easy. I mean, I wish I'd have had that when I was younger, driving everything known to man. I mean, that makes it too easy.
But it's almost like, and this is why I just hate even talking about it.
Yeah,
it's one of the least real issues. Although our town needs cleaned up, it's not looking good. I remember back in the days when we seen people that were trustees at the jail. They were out, getting two for their time served, and they were policing the community and everything. Sure. And, maybe that needs to be looked at again. I don't know. They came out with these laws a few years ago about putting people in jail that couldn't afford to pay time, pay. And basically, they didn't have the money to pay the tickets. They were just simple tickets. It wasn't like they had went out and shot somebody or stole somebody or broke in a house.
It was a nonviolent
misdemeanor. Exactly. They were nonviolent crimes. And, there was a lot of them people that would do their community service and clean up, the area, pick up the stuff. And maybe we need to relook at how we're doing some of that stuff.
Well, I always wondered why they charge people to take trash to the dump. Like, if it's a residential homeowner, they let them in for free. But if it's a business owner or somebody that owns rental property or something, they charge them. And I'm thinking, that's stupid. So if they don't let them in there, what are those people going to do? They're going to dump it in the alley somewhere.
You're right.
Or in a road ditch, and they do. And to me, think outside the box a little bit. Why not just pay people $10 a ton to bring trash to the dump? You'd have the cleanest city in the state of Texas in 30 days.
Oh, there's ideas all over the place. I was recently up in a place called, I think it's called Steamboat, Colorado. Mm-hmm. And I was at their local Walmart. And I'm not picking on Walmart here, so if you work for Walmart, don't get mad at me. But I always see Walmart bags all over town, them little plastic bags. I mean, there's hardly a fence line you can find where there ain't 5 or 10 of them stuck to it. If you go down the highway on the side of the roads in the grass, there's Walmart bags. I mean, they're everywhere. Well, I went to a Walmart up in Steamboat, and they were like, well, how many bags do you need? And I'm like, well, you just stick them in the bag. And they're like, well, do you think it's 2 bags, 3 bags? And I'm like, what is going on here? Well, they were charging, I think, 25 cents a bag for them little plastic bags. And then I noticed everybody in the line behind me brought their own bags. Mm-hmm. And the reason they had implemented that was, one, it really didn't make them a lot of money as a city.
It cleaned up the town.
But it cleaned up the town because people started reusing the bags,
they had an
not
incentive
throwing
to
the
take them
bags and all that. There was an incentive there. Yep. And I actually visited with a business owner, and I said, how did that all come about? And they said, our town was getting horrible. It's a tourist town. And they said there was just trash everywhere, so we imposed that. And he said at first, the first few months, everybody complained about it and everything, which people don't like change. I mean, that's just human nature. We don't like to change. I carried a wallet one time for 12, 15 years, and, your kids, they buy you wallets for Christmas and birthdays and ties. And I had brand new wallets, but I just didn't want to part with my old wallet, even though it had a hole in it and was all falling apart. People do not like change. It's just in our nature. But in the end, everybody got around to it, and they actually became, they promoted it and everything. So it was a good thing. It's just getting over that initial hump of institutionalizing it for the community and everything. I hate that word too, institutionalized. But anyway.
Well, when I was a kid,
we burned our trash can.
Well, they had a deposit on like Coke bottles and stuff.
Yep.
Glass bottles, and you took it back to the grocery store, and you had to have it, or you had to pay that 5 cents a bottle, which everybody thought was outrageous.
Yeah.
But you'd see a Coke bottle on the side of the road, you'd stop and pick it up because you get a nickel for it.
Well, and my wife, God bless her heart, she saves these plastic bottles that you drink your water out of. And I mean, I don't know when bottled water became such a thing, but
yeah, I never thought that would I thought that was the stupidest thing in the world. People will pay to buy water when it's free basically out of your tap.
I can't say nothing because we probably go through 3 or 4 cases a month ourselves. We use it to make our coffee. We use it to drink. I mean, we've.
It's convenient.
But all them bottles you take back to the store and everything. And I was like, honey, why are we doing all this? Why don't we just throw them in the dumpster? Well, we're recycling. I says, yeah, but it's not like when you had the pop bottles. They gave you so much a bottle when you brought them back. And you hit a note with me right there. That is a big deal. We need to come up with ways to incentivize them. But what happens now is, and I understand the process, there's somebody that goes and picks all them plastic bottles she drops off, and then they sell them, and they make money off of them and everything. There are some states where they have, the little 5 cents on the back of them water bottles and all that stuff. So, these are things thinking outside the box. I don't know, Amarillo, we don't like taxes. You had brought up, what was it, drain tax or something.
I call it the rain tax.
Rain
they call it a
tax
drainage fee,
and
but where does it come from?
Yeah, I had never even looked into that till you started talking about it, and you were on point. It's just another scam to tax people and get some money out of them.
Well, I believe it's a property tax, not a fee, because to me, a fee, if you use the term fee, that to me, that means it's optional. You have a choice whether you're going to do that or not and pay the fee. If you're going to play golf at the city golf course, they're going to charge you a fee, right?
Yes.
I don't have to go play golf. As a matter of fact, I've never played golf in my life.
Choice.
I have that choice. But when you make it mandatory, that's tax. And it's mandatory that we pay all these drainage fees. And for somebody that owns a lot of property, it adds up. It's astronomical. And the way they did it with a separate bill, you have to pay with a separate check, is a nightmare. I mean, they said, well, it's a utility, but they don't put it on their utility bill. It's a separate bill. So that's costing the city a bloody fortune to mail it out. It's costing business owners a fortune to input it, to print the check, to mail the check, blah, 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 the postage. It adds up. So it creates a big burden on all the business owners and property owners.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at the fact that, you know what causes all this? I know you do, Dan. What happens is it's getting close to re-election time. What better not come out of my mouth? Raising your property taxes, raising your sales tax, raising taxes.
Right, and then they can say, well, they didn't raise property tax.
They say, hey.
When they raise property tax.
Yeah, we didn't raise your taxes.
Just be honest. People
there
want
was
honesty.
A fee, or there was this, there was that. One of my big pet peeves is, I'm going to be so focused on helping our law enforcement in town. That is a big reason I'm in this deal, because I've identified a problem that I know I can solve. I can't solve it. We as a community can solve it. Let me reword that. And it's not going to be easy. The word that nobody ever want to hear is taxes. Well, here's the thing. I've been hearing all these people talk about, well, we ain't raising your taxes. We're not going to raise your taxes. I'm against taxes. I'm this taxes. Well, I guarantee you, me personally, you want to charge me another half cent or something to get this crime rate in our community down? I'm on board. I'll tell you that right now. When your mama has to worry about somebody coming in her back door in the middle of the day, we got problems. When you get 2 or 3 homicides in 1 week in a community no larger than this, we got problems. We've got a serious crime problem, but it's not our law enforcement's problem. It has been created. My numbers are fleeing my mind right now. But if you'll look, in 2017, we had authorization for, I think it was 400, and I want to say 17 or 431. It's 400 and something sworn officers. What that means, boots on the ground officers. Okay? Our budget this year, I want to say it's 373 or 343. But yet they say they've added additional officers, they've done this, that, and the other. Well, no, they didn't. Okay, you've actually lessened the sworn officers. And there's a whole lot of data out there that'll prove my point, okay? And I'll give you a little story. You hear all these people talk about technology, technology. It's going to solve all of our problems, right? All this technology is. Let me tell you something. One of the greatest things in the world is an old sergeant that's been with a police force 15, 18 years that shows up to a crime scene, because he'll pick up things nobody else has ever picked up before. So your greatest investment is your actual people, your actual servants, your actual law enforcement officers, your boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. It's also the most expensive part of it, because when you add one law enforcement officer, you're not just adding one permanent sworn officer. You're adding transportation, because, you know, they got to have vehicles for them and everything. You're adding uniforms. You're adding insurance. You're adding retirement plans. So, you know, this one guy, it's not just, you know, 40, 60,000 or whatever the salary is.
Yep.
It is everything that goes around just adding that one additional officer. So when you go to add a whole bunch of officers, and I know what they've done, they say, okay, and I don't even know if this is how it works because I'm not in their position, but I'm going to figure it works like this because I've seen how budgetary works with departments. Okay, probably the chief of police or somebody oversees that budget, and they say, okay, this is what you got to work with. Tell me what you're going to do. And so they've basically forced it to where they went to a whole lot of part-time positions. Well, I'm going to ask you something, Dan. If you have a chance to get a full-time position with all the full-time benefits, you've gotten all your training out of Amarillo, and the opportunity for getting that full-time position is pretty far down the road, but you got this one right now in front of you. What are you going to do?
Yeah, you're going to jump ship.
Most of them part-timers are going to jump ship, okay? I respect the fact that they've come up with solutions on, you know, creating the part-time positions because it actually saves money in the budget, but we shouldn't have taken away from our full-time sworn officers to do it. And I don't blame our law enforcement, our chief of police. I blame the city council because we've been too busy worried about building. Who in the world puts that convention center thing that during the COVID, you're shutting down small businesses. I mean, limiting everybody's capability to make a profit. Matter of fact, we had businesses fold here locally, okay? And in the middle of it, you're going to put a bond on there for some type of entertainment. Let me tell you what I know about entertainment, Don, okay? If it's profitable, some person is going to come and invest in it and do it, okay? If that convention center's so profitable, why hasn't an independent businessman come in and grouped together people and built it? It's a loser. It's a loser.
Point. Yeah.
The mall, how does that work? I don't know if Pyramid still owns a mall or not, but malls were profitable. So you've seen malls spring up all over the country. Why? Because a guy could make a buck off of it. That wasn't taxpayers' money that built the mall. That was individual investors. Convention centers, I've seen it in town after town after town, and if you read all of it, they don't make the city no money. What they'll do is they'll say, well, it brings $73 million. I want you to show me that $73 million to the community, okay? I want you to show it to me. You can't, okay? The only thing convention centers really helps is hotels. And unfortunately, we've put ourselves in a bad situation with some of the contracts that have been made in the past 4 years on some obligations. And that's another problem when we talk about taxes. There's no way I'm going to sit here and let you tape me and I'm going to say to you, I will vote against tax increases, because I'd be lying. Because the next set of city council members, probably the next 2 or 3, is going to have to address some overspending and some bad negotiations that have been done. And you're not going to be able to cure the crime rate in our community and all these other things, which should have been the focus. Basic things, taking care of your roads, your infrastructure. Your law enforcement is your top priority. Protect the public. Okay, that is your first priority. The fire department, them. Your sanitation, we can go on and on and on with the basics.
Yeah.
But yet we're out here during the middle of a national lockdown, COVID and everything, wanting to raise people's taxes on a bond. That made no sense whatsoever. And, you know, I don't know. I'm not judging, but it was a bad call.
At least they had the sense to put it on the ballot, and the people refused it overwhelmingly.
Thank God.
So that got shut down.
And then,
but to me, you know, back to your law enforcement, and I've, of course, we've done some things that, given some input over the years, but what I've noticed is if they'll focus on the small crimes, whether it's graffiti on buildings, break-ins, if they'll stomp that out and be tough on the small crimes, then the big crime will vanish.
You're exactly right.
So to me, it's so important. I think they should put policemen on horseback downtown or on foot and get to know all the business owners downtown. And I don't see why you couldn't do that a little bit more effectively in some neighborhoods where it's practical. Because if the people know the policeman, who they will then know and respect, they'll let him know who the criminals are.
You're right.
But we all buy new vehicles and they're driving around in cars and giving people traffic tickets. That's not making the community safer. It's not just about raising money by ticketing people who are going 45 and a 35, which I've gotten many of those tickets. So maybe I'm biased, but I'm trying to get things
lucky.
done.
I usually get a warning.
Yeah. Well, they look at me and just want to lock me up. But I just think that we really need to focus on the small things, and then the big things take care of themselves.
That's exactly right.
So, and I remember when they did the ballpark, and I had a guy that worked for me that was on the deal, and he was telling me, oh, this is a great thing because it's not going to raise taxes. We're going to take the money from the hotel tax, and it's going to go to that. And I kept trying to convince him. I said, so where does the money going to be replaced? If you take the money from the hotel tax and that's all going to service this, isn't there going to be a void in the general fund? But they didn't understand what I was saying. Well, guess what? There's a void in the general fund because the hotel tax isn't there, right? So then they have an income problem. And that's what bothers me, is that we have really smart people that don't see simple things running making these decisions.
It's all intertwined, Dan.
I'm trying to think, what am I missing here? Am I wrong? This is pretty simple.
We're all human beings. If someone comes to us pitching something and it sounds good and we buy into it, then we reflect it, okay? I'm not judging nobody and the decisions they've made, but I would say there's been some boneheaded calls. And it's apparent they don't know how to negotiate for the taxpayers. It is very apparent. I've looked at so many of the deals. It's not been for the good of the city of Amarillo, our community. Who is negotiating these deals for our community?
Well,
Look at the building purchases. I know a man's got to make $1. If you owned one of them buildings, I know I'm trying to buy that building to build something there. I'm trying to buy. You would expect to make a profit.
Yeah, that price going to go up.
And that's what you should do. But me, representing the taxpayers in this community, okay, I should be offering you the lowest dollar possible. And then we're going to do what's called a negotiation. And I know you've heard this, Dan, before. You can shear a sheep every year, but you can only skin them once, okay? Well, there's been some skinning going on of our taxpayers, They're broken, busted, and disgusted. That's what's happened to our taxpayers. Our current council has broken the faith in the system of the taxpaying citizens. It's there. Go knock on doors. I have. I've listened to what people have to say. Okay, they're disgusted with it all right now. And I can go on and on and on, but the bottom line is we got to vote them out. We've got to vote them people out, but we've got to be cautious too. I'm going to throw something out here right now, just going totally off script of what we've been talking about. We was talking about me being a justice of the peace. A lot of people don't know how that came about for me, okay? What had happened to me is I'd served my whole life for this country. I am real big on the Constitution, okay? I'm a big believer in freedom of speech. I'm a believer, freedom of religion. I'm also a big believer of the process, our judicial process, the way that we punish people or don't punish people. I got caught up in that system years ago. I had one crime, one charge. Before it was over with, by a little tool, some of the, I don't know, I don't want to call them corrupt prosecutors, but there's prosecutors that do some things that I would have to seriously question, okay? And what they would do is, I wanted to go to court because I was not guilty.
Right.
Okay, well, when you get charged, they take you to jail. You have to bond out. You're never getting that bond money back. And these bonds were very high that I had to pay. And I was on active duty military at the time. And then I would have to go get an attorney. And then you're paying this bond guy. You're paying this attorney guy. Your money's going away. Oh, and I was a single dad at the time, trying to raise a son on my own. Okay? So we had to move over here in San Jacinto. Okay? Had to just downsize so I could afford to fight to prove my innocence, which shouldn't be that way. They should have to try to prove my guilt.
Right.
So I'm already losing faith in the system. But I got light at the end of my tunnel because I believe in my heart I'm fixing to actually get to go in front of a judge and get a jury that can decide my fate. What's a prosecution do? The day I'm supposed to go to court, they drop the charges. You know what they do the next day?
Refile.
They refile the charges. So guess what gets to happen to me again?
You start the process all over.
I get to bond out, spend more money, go get another attorney. I mean, I get to do it all over again. This went on 2008, 2012, 4 or 5 years. I was about broken. It took a toll on me and everything I've ever believed about our country. I couldn't believe that something this horrible had happened. I'd heard stories of that. We hear these stories on the news and stuff, and I thought, there's no way this is happening. You know, why can't I get in front of a judge? Why can't I do it? And it tore me up. Well, I ended up, they said if I'll just, do this, and I couldn't fight them no more. So I went ahead and did it. And the rest of my life, I've got to live with the fact that I took a punishment for something that I was not guilty of. Why? Because of a judicial system that's went astray. And it's still going on. I'm not saying it's going on all the time. I'm not accusing anybody of it, but it goes on. Fast forward, that's why I became a judge, because I thought a judge could actually change things. You said earlier in your conversation, people don't realize how local elections are so important. Let me tell you what I learned as a judge. You can't change nothing. Everything's written by your local elected officials, your state officials, and your federal officials. All these laws, all these ordinances. So it starts at the local level. I had a great plan with domestic violence. I ran into brick walls as a justice of the peace trying to sell people on that because it wasn't something that they were ready for.
It would take effort.
Yeah. And
It
was also going to, they used, and I'll just tell it to you. Remember, don't come to me with the problem, come to me with the solution.
Right.
Okay. This has been, I do my homework. I never just spout off at the mouth. I just don't do it. If I don't know it, I'm going to go look it up. Your rain tax, I went and studied that. And that is what it is. It ain't a fee, it's a tax. Let's just accept it. And it was probably during a re-election year that came about. But let's go back to this. Let's tackle domestic violence, okay? I peeled back that onion. I've studied. I know what works and what doesn't work. The bottom line is there are places across the country, certain communities, where they've actually decided to stomp out domestic violence. But before you can stop domestic violence, you got to know the roots of it. Domestic violence has always been there, I mean, somewhere, I don't remember which state it is, there's a rule on how you can whip your wife a certain thick switch or something like that. That's horrible. But that's stinking thinking from days gone by. So there's some stuff that's there.
I think we should amend those and put our elected officials instead of wives.
Oh, Lord. Well, keep it a small switch for me. Because I'm sure I'll make a bad call. Everybody's going to make bad calls. But the domestic violence thing, come to find out, the earlier you get involved in this, okay, the more likelihood that it'll never become a serious misdemeanor or a serious crime at all, okay? But it takes earlier intervention. Mm-hmm. In the 1950s, 1960s, our country took off in divorces. I don't know if you know anything about that. That created what? Separated family units and a whole lot of issues and everything. And for a while we called them dysfunctional families and everything. I don't think they're dysfunctional, but that's kind of what it is. Well, you've got generations of young men and young women that are seeing broken families and everything, and they really don't know what a good relationship looks like, okay? They don't know.
They don't have any good examples to follow.
Yeah, they didn't have nothing to follow. So to stop domestic violence, we've got to educate. There you go. You got to put in that time. People don't want to put in that time. Right. Law enforcement, the first time they get called out to a scene, they got called to my house several times prior to the big night or whatever you want to call it. That big night can result in death sometimes, okay, because it's escalated. It's been proven that domestic violence don't just go from 0 to 100. It goes from 0 to 10, just like a car. It picks up speed. And the longer it's let go, the worse it's going to be when it hits that stop sign. I mean, it's going to be full blast. But the earlier intervention, the first time the law enforcement shows up at that house, and we can write a city ordinance right now. Well, we could. I can't. You can't because we ain't city council members. But we can put an ordinance in place where when the law enforcement comes to the house, they can serve them a ticket. And they go to the courthouse. And then that judge can legally, by the ordinance, order them to a modified form of BIP. Okay? They're going to go and they're going to get educated.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
They're going to learn what triggers are. They're going to learn what a good relationship looks like. Mm-hmm. They're going to learn. That's going to knock out 75% of your domestic violence right there from the get-go. And we do not have to convict them of a crime, okay, because we can make it a deferred prosecution thing. Mm-hmm. Once they can finish that, it's gone. You were never charged in the first place, okay? Deferred adjudication is not the best thing in the world. I'm sorry. Deferred prosecution is a lot better because deferred adjudication, the charge is always going to show up. You won't be convicted, but it's always going to show up. Deferred prosecution, it goes away. There was never a charge. So there's ways that you or me or whoever wouldn't have any type of charge on us for completing that program. Now, that gives us something to build on from there. Next time you come back, it's going to get a little bit more harsh and everything, but it really, really has affect the early intervention. These are things we can fix on a local level because everybody's like, well, how are you going to do all this? Well, this is what I was getting at. As a judge, as a JP, I learned that I got a whole bunch of rules that I have to go by that say shall or may. I'm not allowed to interpret it. It tells me. If it says shall, it's black and white. I don't have a choice. If it's may, then I might have a little decisions. But even in that, they tell us our mays what we can do or what's been done. So really, all these laws, ordinances, and everything, as a JP or judge, you really don't have an effect on it. So to really change things, you have to get in at a local level council so you can write ordinances and stuff like that, or a state level, representative or Senate or federal. That's the only way you can change what's wrong with the judicial system. And it's not judicial. I don't want to say the word judicial because that makes it sound like I'm targeting judges. And let me tell you, we've got some great judges in our community. But the problem is they have to go by what's written, by the laws. Who writes them laws? Congress, state reps, local city officials. Mm-hmm. That's where the laws come from. That's why it's so important.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, you can put it in the city code. Now, they'll always push back on that. I've tried to say the same thing about trespassing.
Yeah.
You know, they need, in order to solve the homeless problem, it was a simple way to do that. Mm. Because if they will go, and we studied this issue throughout the country, my wife and I, and we even gave a presentation to the city council and the city manager and the mayor and several years ago about how to solve this problem. But then they give it to the homeless groups who just butchered it, but because they don't want to solve the problem. They want the problem. I mean, I spent 2 years going to all their meetings, figured all this out. It's obvious it's a money deal for them. They're getting grants, and it's in their interest to have homeless people.
You are taking us down a dangerous road here.
But I'm sure I won't get a lot of love for that comment, but it's the truth. But there's simple ways to solve the problem, but nobody has the courage to do it. And one thing you can do is, and they have done a lot to improve, and they took a lot of my wife's ideas and implemented them, and they worked. But one of the things was simply, like you were saying, make trespassing a misdemeanor inside the city limits. That way, if they go up there and somebody's on somebody's private property, they can just give them a ticket
on the spot instead
right there.
Of giving them a warning.
Then that can come into a warrant, a non-extraditable warrant. Well, they're not going to pay the ticket. They're gone. Mm-hmm. They're going to the next town. And you do things like that, but then if you really want to solve the problem, you have to have a comprehensive solution, which involves a safe harbor. You have to have the facility set up to where you can solve their problems. You know, you have mental health issues, you have drug addiction, and the city needs to have that facility and bring them in and really help those people that are homeless. But you don't throw them out on the street. You don't allow them on the street. You have to have a place outside the public that they can go. And then they need to be helped with their problems. A lot of those people don't want help. And they're not going to follow the rules, but then you don't let them on the street. But you're giving them the option.
Yeah.
So everything should be a choice. If they choose not to participate, then they've chosen not to be in this town.
It's tough love.
That's it.
People don't want to hear it.
Right.
And, God bless. What did I say earlier? Some of the solutions are so simple.
Almost all solutions are simple.
But who wants
it takes
to
courage to implement.
Yeah. Who wants to look heartless?
Right.
One of my opponents, I God bless, I'm not going to say he or she, but you can figure it out. No matter what's said, I forget what it was, about refugees, about what would we do in the middle of the night if a bus shows up. And I heard them say, well, we'll just jump out and welcome them in our community. We're going to do this and that and the other. And I'm like, and we're going to pay more taxes for that. We're going to, it has so many bad things that happen in our community because of it. Why would we do that? It doesn't make sense. But for me to say that, it makes me sound kind of heartless, like I don't love people and everything. But remember what I told you, my grandma told me, take care of our own backyard first. Right. We got our kids in our community that need good jobs. We got our homeless people already. Why do we want to add to that problem? Why do we want to add to that burden?
There's certain elements that want to add to that problem because they want to destroy communities, I believe. And that's the goal. That's what they're trying to do. That's what they're after. I believe it should be it's the state's responsibility to protect their border, not the federal. And if I was governor, I would kick the federal government out of the state of Texas. I would say, I'm handling the border, get lost. It's none of your business. And solve the problem. And let the people that want to come here legally, that want to follow the rules, come in. We want immigrants, but we can't allow people to bypass the system. That's breaking and entering. Simple as that. I mean, if somebody breaks into your house, crawls in the window, and is eating your food when you come home,
they're going to have a bad day.
They're going to have a bad day, and they should have a bad day. That's not respecting your private property. to me, everything boils down to private property rights, and they're doing everything they can to take it away. I can't evict tenants that don't pay rent because of some order that they put out so they're stripping us of our property rights. And it's a huge issue to me. The mask mandate, city says they didn't pass it, but they passed it. And they said if they come into your business and one of your employees doesn't have a mask on, they can fine you $2,000. City exempt, right?
That's the blind.
They
leading
exempted
the blind,
themselves.
Dan. That's the blind leading the blind.
But they claim, well, we didn't enforce it, so therefore, what's the problem? The problem is you did it. You took my property rights and the freedom to choose away from my employees whether or not they want to wear a mask, and the business's owners' freedom and property rights. I mean, how can the city pass an ordinance and come in and tell you that you have to wear a mask or a tie? Where does it end? So they say, well, we're just trying to protect people's health. Bullshit. Okay. That's a lie.
You're right.
They're controlling you. They're manipulating, and they blame it on the governor, which I think he made some major mistakes. He may pay a price at the ballot box, but he didn't have the authority to do it. He didn't have the authority to extend early voting. He's overstepped his bounds. So it's about principle. If you don't stand on principle, what do we have left? We have no country. We have no community. Everything goes to pot. And just like these refugees, we want to help people.
Yep.
And anybody that wants to help them can go down to the border where they're sitting on the other side of the fence, and they can go in there and help them. There's nobody saying they can't. Why don't they do that? No, they want to force you to help them and let them take the credit.
Oh, you ain't going to find me arguing. I will not argue about that. I disagree with the whole way that situation's being handled. It really don't have much to do with us on a local level, but it does. If you study, years back, we took in a lot of refugees, and at the courthouse, I can't tell you, my precinct was precinct 2, how many different languages come in there. And do you know if you don't speak English in the courthouse, I have to bring an interpreter to do that.
Yeah.
They get paid. Where does that money come from?
You have to do the same thing on elections.
Taxpayers' dollars.
That's right.
Taxpayer dollars. I can just go on and on and on. In our schools, I forget, what was it, 20, 30 different languages?
37 different languages.
Yeah, 37 different languages. Now, I like to keep stuff separate. There was a young man, what's his name, John, that's running for the college board, and he kept pointing out, okay, that's really not under our jurisdiction. Well, a lot of the education stuff don't fall under the city council. Matter of fact, none of it really does. But the thing is, there's some things as community leaders we can do to help. The first thing we got to do is stop putting the school systems in that situation. Why would we intentionally bring in things that's going to cost the taxpayers more dollars, therefore taking away from our own kids? And I'm not being selfish. I love people. I'm a big, everybody in this town knows Rich Herman. I get out and I do fundraisers. I try to help people. I do things. I've picked up trash in the community. I did wildfire events to raise money for families. I mean, I've done it all. So I love people. But I don't go out and intentionally do things that's going to harm my own neighbors and family and friends. It's going to cost them. Well, that should be a choice. Yeah. I've never agreed with forced charity. I've never agreed with it. Mm-hmm. I think if I want to help the homeless, I should be able to donate to help the homeless, not you use my tax dollars to do that.
Right.
If I want to help, whatever it is, that's my choice. Government needs to get out of the charity business. I definitely and think that. And right now, we are getting way deep into it. And two of my opponents are big time in the government being into the charity business. Mm-hmm. Folks, we need to get back to the basics, Dan, the basics. Yep. Protect the public. That's my first priority. Don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to have 4 other people sitting up there with me. You got a mayor and 3 other council members that I'm going to have to use skill and negotiation and tact to, once we figure this out together, to hopefully get everybody coming online together. I do disagree with everybody agreeing all the time. I think a little disagreement's good. I'm in agreement with you with what you said about our local officials got way away from our constitutional rights. You know, they followed, I call him the full Fauci, or however you say his name. That guy's the biggest idiot I ever met, okay? I've had biological, nuclear, and all that chemical training and everything. Them masks were worthless. Now, did I wear a mask? Yes, I wore a mask. Because you remember the cartoon character Linus in Charlie Brown?
Yeah.
What did he carry with him?
Blanket.
He carried a security blanket. Did that security blanket, if someone was to break in his house in the middle of the night, did it protect him? No. You needed a gun to protect you. That security blanket provided him no protection whatsoever. But what it did, Dan, what that blanket did was make Linus feel secure.
Right.
Them masks, all they did was make some people that live in fear, okay, right. and that's not a bad thing, okay, it made them feel secure. It made them feel comfortable. So by me wearing my mask, if it made you feel secure, that was your security blanket, even though we know it really didn't do nothing. It's been scientifically proven. I felt obligated because of my love for my fellow man to wear mine, okay? Where I had a problem is when they started telling me I had to wear it.
There you go.
Okay, the next problem I had, and this is going to be denied, it's kind of like what you talked about, how they worded everything on the businesses, okay, how they were going to enforce it and everything, but we didn't really enforce it. Look what they did to our churches and our community.
Yeah.
They destroyed. They stepped on my rights of freedom of religion. I don't care what your religion is. I'm a Christian, okay? But you better leave them rights alone. Them rights came under our original Constitution. It's like the Second Amendment, First Amendment, freedom of speech. They've suppressed our freedom of speech on the city council meetings.
Well, they're doing it all
They
over.
can say they didn't, but by moving the times, picking out how many seconds you can talk, you got to be on the agenda. What are they really doing? They're trying to limit your freedom of speech. These guys and girls have stepped all over our Constitution, and they haven't thought about it for a moment. Right. I've got a real problem with that, but the big one was the churches. You know, when I had to sit in a parking lot while my preacher was standing up on a roof, I got really mad at this city council, okay? I got mad at our state reps, our governor, our federal, all of them, because it is my choice and your choice whether I want to go into church and be at risk or not. Okay.
Well, to me, if
that's not their decision.
Right. You know, they talk about how religious they are and how what great believers they are in God, but then they're afraid to go to church. Well, if you believe in God, isn't he going to protect you? Why are you worried about it? I don't worry about anything.
I agree.
One day I'm going to fall over dead. We're never going to get out of this world alive. None of us.
That's right.
I don't think it matters. I believe you have to stand on principle, do what's right, and don't worry about the consequences. But then you have no worries. You've done what's right. We're all going to die of something. What if we have a real pandemic? A real pandemic is when 7.5% of the population dies of the disease. If I may be wrong on that, but I think that's right because I read it. It had to be right? Not 0.03% or not 1%. And most of the people that died didn't die of the virus. They died of complications of other issues that they had. And if you look at the total deaths, 17, 18, 19, and 20, there were fewer deaths in 2020 than there were in 2019.
You're going down a dangerous road again, Dan. You're doing it again.
So nothing's adding up to me.
It doesn't.
So what if we have a real problem? That's what worries me. And what concerns me even more than any of that is that so many people just gave up their rights with no thought and no care. And that's what worries me more than anything else.
Oh,
I mean, they just acquiesced. The churches should have said, too bad, we're having services, come arrest us. That's what they should have done, in my opinion. I did nothing different whatsoever because I'm not going to let the government control me. And I don't think anybody should. They only have the power that we give them. So don't give it to them.
I agree with you 100%. It really upset me because if you didn't feel comfortable going to church, I'm okay with that. Don't come.
Right.
But
it
don't
should be
limit
your choice.
Me.
Yeah.
Don't tell me I can't.
Right. It should be a choice.
Don't coerce my preacher with threats of lawsuits and stuff like that. The whole deal was handled wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah. Governor said this. Federal said this. Okay, great.
Yeah, but who cares?
You are a filter. Them people we elect on May the 1st,
mm-hmm.
they are our last line of defense between the craziness in this world.
Mm-hmm.
They are it.
Yeah.
You vote for me, I've already proven I'll serve my country. I've already proven I'll fight, okay, against all enemies. And we say foreign, but we got some domestic enemies within our own house, okay?
Yeah, and I don't even think some of them realize who they are.
You know, unfortunately, you're right. It's the blind leading the blind. I heard that this morning at church, and it just keeps, because like I was saying earlier, the media tells us what's important.
Don't listen to them.
If they tell us trash is a problem, and they don't talk about the homicides, they don't talk about the burglaries, they don't talk about all the criminal things, they don't talk about all that. If they don't talk about all that, well, that ain't a problem. Now, is it? Okay? They don't talk about masks. That's not a problem.
So everything's about perception.
Correct. But I count on my local leaders to filter out what's important, make sure it's not stepping on my constitutional rights, okay, the Declaration of Independence. You know, there's so many people that are, I'm not going to say, I almost said stupid, okay? The Second Amendment wasn't written for any purpose other than overthrowing a government that's gone awry.
Right. It's so that we can shoot our elected officials right between the eyes if they step over the bounds.
And you say, and okay, I'm not trying to promote machine guns or anything else, but if the government has machine guns and I'm supposed to be able to be equipped to overthrow them, why shouldn't I be able to have a machine gun? I don't buy guns to hunt.
Yeah, it says that your Second Amendment right shall not be infringed.
Correct.
So when you limit what you can own, what's the word infringement mean?
That's right. Well, and if you'll read the Declaration of Independence, which was basically a letter to England,
Yep.
if you've ever read it and studied it, and to the people, telling them this is why we're doing it and this is what we're going to do. And then later on, of course, we wrote the Constitution and all that stuff.
We gave them a choice, basically.
Correct.
And they decided to fight, so we fought.
But there's a lot of things that we decide what people focus on. What you pay attention to is what people will do well, okay? There's another thing I'm going to tell you right now. I'm really, really good at getting people to work together and learning to solve their own problem. But something I believe more than anything else when it comes to an organization is that all things should be handled at the lowest level possible. Right. And I have a way of relearning an organization. It's not quick, and it is sometimes met with resistance because we've always done it this way, okay? There's a Mr. Wyckoff, a friend of mine. He's got a little button about we've always done it this way, okay? I've even heard this one. Well, we tried it and it didn't work. Well, you know, I've been around, and sometimes you try something and it's the wrong timing, okay? Maybe there does need to be a convention center, but your timing was bad. That was bad timing.
Well, I think from what I hear from the voters, the voters want, from what I hear, is they want the city to take care of the basics,
Mm-hmm.
the needs, not the wants.
That's exactly.
Because if you take care of the needs, the wants take care of themselves.
Daddy ain't always going to give you what you want. Daddy's going to give you what you need. I agree.
But the market then, if they see we have great streets, we have great infrastructure, the city's doing a great job of providing for the basic necessities. There's no potholes, that sort of thing. Businesses are going to look at that and say, wow, Amarillo has some really low taxes. Cost of living's low. They're doing a good job maintaining their facilities. All of a sudden, businesses are going to start flocking in. And then all of a sudden, they'll produce the wants. You know, they'll come in and build a convention center. But we have so many unique things about Amarillo that I don't understand why nobody focuses on. That people would come here from the cattle industry,
Mm-hmm.
the railroad history, the big ranch history, the Paladuro Canyon that half the people in Amarillo don't even know exists. But we don't focus on any of the things that make us unique and great. We build a baseball stadium that they have in every other town. That's not unique, in my opinion. And it's been sitting empty for a year, pretty much.
I kind of like the baseball stadium.
Well, I mean, it's pretty.
I don't
when you
like
drive by
baseball.
it. I've never been to it, but
I don't care for baseball, Dan,
Mhm.
but I love, like last night, they had a Midland concert there. And,
really,
yeah, they've had some really good concerts down in that. I was actually skeptical, but I'm always the guy that'll give somebody a second chance to convince me. And like I said, I don't care for baseball. You probably will not see me at a baseball game. Okay, if you see me there, I'm probably trying to sell you a ticket or something for a fundraiser for my disaster relief club. I'm gonna tell you that right now. But the concerts,
I guess I'm jealous because I don't have time because I'm too busy working trying to figure out how to pay the property taxes to support all this. You know.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I'm saying. There's mixed emotions about that. Okay, I for one. The jury's still out. I'm still out to lunch on it.
Well, I hope it works. I'm just saying I don't have a problem with with the baseball stadium. I'm just trying to point out we need, to me, as a community, we should focus on what makes us unique rather than things that you can get anywhere. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, you're right. The helium plant down the road there.
We're the only helium production facility in the world.
A Baptist preacher friend of mine, he called me up. He said, hey, man, why don't you go out here and figure out how to get this helium plant and then go round up all these monuments they're tearing down all over the country, and we'll build a big old historical site and put all them there. And I thought, that is a great idea.
Yeah.
And our community has these kind of ideas, just like you're saying. We have the quarter horse, which I'm not sure, did it end up we're going to lose it or something?
I think the museum is staying here, but their offices are moving to Fort Worth, something like that.
The actual registration, which
Right.
they employ a lot of people at that building because you got to learn markings and all kinds of stuff when it comes to them type of horses. But the thing is, I agree. We got a real cool museum out here. Where was that at? Canyon.
Yeah.
Over there by the college.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I walked through there and I learned history. I seen a friend of mine, Billy Turpin. I didn't know he was like chief of Indians or something like that. And I just thought of him as a Vietnam veteran that was really cool, you know. And I went through that museum and I called him. I was like, Billy, you're on the wall, you know. I was amazed, and then they had the history of the oil and petroleum and the cattle, and there is a lot of things we could focus on in our community. I said something. What was it? The NAACP Zoom meeting they had, and somehow you open your mouth and your foot goes in it sometimes.
Yeah, I tend to be pretty good at that.
And that's what happened. What I was trying to tell them was, okay, I'll use Wonderland Park. I'm going to try this again and not mess it up because, boy, if you'd heard what I said, you'd have thought I didn't like Wonderland, and that's not what I was saying. I'll use Wonderland Park and Amarillo Ice. Instead of us going and giving all these big abatements and tax incentives and all this stuff to outside businesses to come in, why don't we work a little bit with our locals that are exceptional? You know, Amarillo Ice, they're expanding. They're like the biggest ice distributor in West Texas now, okay? Why haven't we went and said, hey, we're going to give you some tax savings. We're going to help you add on. We're going to help you do this. You know, let's build them bigger. Create jobs for them. We're going to let you go tax-free. They've been taxpayers. They've been paying their taxes. Why don't we give them a break?
Yeah.
Instead of taking some outsider that we don't know that may compete with them.
Yeah.
Okay? Wonderland Park. Let's go out there and say, hey, we got a little bit of this Thompson Park over here that don't get used. Let us help you grow, make you a little bigger. Do you know that we feed 5 states can feed off of this area? And if we could, and I'm going to use Wonderland, if we could help them grow, okay, I'm not saying go take their business away. I'm saying let's help them.
Yeah.
Let's give them some incentives. Heck, we've given money to companies.
Why do people come here for entertainment? It's all private, right? Wonderland.
Correct.
They'll come to Cadillac Ranch. They'll come to the Big Texan. I mean, people know Amarillo for those things that are all privately owned. They don't come here because of the city of government.
No bonds or nothing like that.
The government should do the least amount, and they shouldn't be in business, I guess is what I'm saying. There should be, I've said for years, we need a constitutional amendment to separate government and business. Every government seems to want to get into business, and that starts skewing markets and messing things up, in my opinion. Like right now, they're talking about having the new thing that I just heard about was they're going to create a broadband network, the city of Amarillo, to give free internet access to certain people. I don't know how they're going to do it in Amarillo. Well, that makes no sense to me. I'm like, why are they doing that? That makes no sense. Who's going to pay for that?
Well, it's free. Who is?
Well, they say, well, we're going to get a federal grant. Well, who's going to maintain it?
Where does the federal grant come from?
Nightmare. What are they going to do? Sell the data? They scarf up from everybody? I mean,
it's not.
It's
free.
just, to me, it is when you have all these different businesses that provide internet and broadband internet, why can't, if it's needed, which I'm skeptical, if a certain community isn't served, why couldn't they incentivize that company to build it out? Say, look, we'll help pay to build it out because you don't think you're going to have enough customers, but then as you get customers, pay us back or something. I don't think they've been approached. Okay, they say they have, but I think if you're going to give people the opportunity to come into Amarillo, part of it is you have to serve all the town, not just part of it, and work with them. Say, okay, you have to do part of North Amarillo, and then you can do part of South Amarillo.
You said take government out of business. That's a double-edged sword. See?
Well, I'm not saying to own the business and to get in on it, but you can, as a regulatory body, you can say, okay, Suddenlink, you've got the colonies, but you also have to do North Heights as you build it out. You can't just build out the high-end part of town. That's not being in business with them. That's using your franchise, ability to encourage them to do the whole city, not just part of it. I think there's ways that you could solve that problem without having to build out an entire network throughout because I looked at setting up my own ISP one time, and I could do it. And I worked with AT&T. I could set it up, and but I thought, well, I don't have time to mess with this, and I don't want to have to bill it, and I don't want to have to maintain it and hire the people. So if the thing goes down in the middle of the night, we've got to get out there and figure out what went wrong and suffer and keep people from doing weird things. It didn't make any, after I thought about it long enough, I thought, it's not worth my time.
Right.
So why would do you think that's a good idea for the city to go into the broadband business?
No, I think we should be totally out of it. just like you said.
But some child may not be able to do his homework because he doesn't have broadband.
Well, we'll have to address that child, you know.
But that's the argument. But I didn't have internet when I went to school. Did you?
Well, here's my deal. The schools all have internet. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Keep the kids in the school. You're okay.
There you go.
All right? I hate it. I'll tell you right now, this is where you...
Libraries have internet. Schools have internet.
Correct. There's ways to get on the internet without the government getting involved in it. My whole thing is this right here. Let's talk about the internet. Let's talk about computers. Let's talk about technology. One of the things the city, I promise you, faces, and nobody talks about it, you have probably 3 generations right now that probably can barely turn a computer on.
Mm-hmm.
But you want them to go on there and do their banking, pay their bills, do this, do that, file court orders, all this other stuff on the internet. They don't even know how to use it. Okay, that group, them 3 generations, have to have it still in paper formats.
Mm-hmm.
So now your city is still having to do certain documents and certain things in paper. Okay, and they're going to have to keep doing that for a while.
Sure.
Then you have that next, which is about 5 or 6 generations. I forget. When I say generations, I'm counting usually like that 8 to 10 year period. Okay, Now you got them. They're computer savvy, they're technical, but they ain't still there. Like my beautiful wife, I don't care what I do, she wants a receipt. If I go get gas, give me a receipt. If you go do this, give me a receipt. Where's the receipt? Where's the receipt? I'm a receipt keeping fool now. That's a lot of paper, ain't it?
Yep.
Whereas I could just put it in my phone and get all the receipts emailed to me or something like that. But she likes that paper receipt. And so you have that generation, which we can get away with certain things when it comes to technology, okay, that the city has to address. And then we got the younger generations, which it's growing now. They can be completely independent. They don't need paper products and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere there's a balance where we can save money as a city.
Sure.
And that needs to be addressed. Going back to your statement earlier, this is getting long-winded here. You know what our original money said on it, the original coin? It's going to blow your mind. Everybody thinks it says, "In God We Trust." Okay, I don't know if you know that. "In God We Trust" came out while Abraham Lincoln was in office. He put that on the money to show the South that God was on the north side. If you really go back, and I don't know what it said in between, but our first coin said, "Mind your business." And I brought that up because of what you was talking about, the government getting into business and everything. That was a big problem when we were separating the revolution and everything, was they were in our businesses and everything, and they wanted everybody to mind their business, mind your business. Government shouldn't be in it. And I think you're right. I think it was Cole Stanley that was on here, was talking about the permit and all that process and everything that interferes with doing business. And
well, government, it becomes, I call it the soft tyranny of bureaucracy.
You're right.
And it's just the natural order of things. Government gets bigger and fatter, but until it goes bust. I mean, that's just what happens. But we can control that on a local level. But, you know, the code enforcement is designed, the theory behind it is to keep unscrupulous contractors out of the city, not to regulate everybody. You know, they take that, and then, so all of a sudden they just become a big bureaucracy and think they have to regulate everything that goes on. But you have a competent builder. He's the one with the risk. To me, if the city knows a guy's doing a good job and he's watching it, you don't need to nitpick that builder. That builder is going to be the nitpicker that wants to make sure the property he builds is right. And the codes are only minimum standards. You know, if I build something, I'm not going to even think about the code. I'm going to do it right.
You're right.
You know, and it's going to be,
in this area.
You know, then I don't have any problem. I don't care, you know. They're just bare minimums, you know, like 2-foot footing or something ridiculous. Like 2-foot footing, that sucker's going to be at least 3 if I build it. And if it's going to be 2 stories, I'm going to do 4 or 5-foot footing because I don't want the damn foundation to move. But they do stupid things like everybody has to have all these studies, soil samples. Well, they just have it from the property next door. Why do they make that builder go redo all that and pay all these fees and spend all this time and money when they've already got that information in their system? And I think that's one of the things he was complaining about. And there's so many ways that you could streamline things and make things more efficient. But government doesn't think that way because they're clerks, right? It's a job to them. They're hourly employees. They have no incentive to speed things up, or because their job doesn't hang on it. Where the builder, if he didn't get that thing built, he's paying interest on the loan. His clients are paying interest. The banks are on them to get it done. But you've got some clerk here that maybe doesn't feel like coming to work that day, and it's just sitting on his desk.
Well, I don't know if I should really put this out here. I've visited with some clerks and everything. And in the past, when I've been put in supervisory roles and stuff like that, first thing I do is focus on my customers, okay? Your taxpayers are your customers in this case. They're actually your boss, if you think about it.
That's right.
They're actually your boss.
Exactly.
And I've noticed, I call it the 8 to 5 syndrome. And we'll just pick a department. Let's pick the water department. When do most people pay their water bill?
Probably when it's due or at the last minute.
Lunch hour.
Or noon, yeah.
Or right after they get off work.
Right.
So why do I got you coming into work 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning? Why don't I have minimum staffing during them hours and work on a rotation? Now, I'm not trying to cut your wages because my belief is you work to a standard,
right?
Not to a time clock, okay? But by just shifting some things around, we'll be better at serving the people, okay, at taking care of the problems and everything. And it's just little things like that. Like I remember I had a recruiting office here in Amarillo. I had 14 non-commissioned officers working for me out of this one office. And I would tell them, we don't work to time, we work to the standard. You get this, this, and this done, we're going fishing. And most Fridays, we didn't even come to work. We would get 3-day weekends almost every weekend, and we got recognized all the time for being above the standards and doing a better job than it. It didn't make me popular with my peers in the same leadership roles because they were from the old school. Well, we're coming in early in the morning, we're going to leave late at night.
Yeah.
Why? Are we just training to be miserable here or something like that? I don't need to train in misery. I know how to be miserable. I don't need to train in it, okay? Right. And there's some little things we can do, we can tweak. But
well, I think most of your people at the city are very good people, and they're doing a good job.
Exactly.
But you're always going to have a problem. But to me, instead of punishing people, they should incentivize them and reward them for getting things done in a efficient and practical manner.
Yep.
And maybe, they always want to pay the people at the top all this money, but the people at the bottom, they don't pay them anything. To me, it's the opposite. The guys doing the work ought to be making the money.
You're right.
And the guys at the top, maybe they are paid a little bit too much. Maybe we need to look at that and swap that around a little bit. Or pay the people that are doing a really good job, give them a bonus, People that are using their heads and making and enable the people at the low end to make decisions. Now, some people can't, but those people you get out, or you give them a rote job that's just check the box. But when you're dealing with people and trying to get things done for the city, because every property that's added to the city tax rolls is money, income for the city. So to me, they should have a big incentive to be pushing properties to be built inside the city limits, not shoving them outside the city limits.
Correct. Expand your tax base. I agree. And, everybody, when I talk about what you and me were just talking about, which we're in total agreement on it, when I bring that up to people, they're like, Well, then you'd have to raise taxes to do all that because you're going to have to pay them more
No, you
more
can read.
hours. And I'm like, no, it actually works just the opposite.
That's right.
Okay, the most important thing to a person is their time. Mm-hmm. Most city employees are working on a 40-hour work week. If you can do what I want you to do, here's the standards. If you can get that done in 36 hours versus 40, I'm still going to pay you for the 40, but you just got 4 hours off. Did that cost the taxpayers anything? No. And it motivated that particular person to get something done better, faster, you know what I'm saying, and done to a certain standard.
Right.
Once you start working to standards versus time, you will find out your employees, your peers will all come to life. If you tell me, Rich, you know what a mechanic is, works on your car? That was a stupid question, but anyway, a mechanic works on your car. You know how they get paid. It's called a man-hour chart and everything like that. That's how that works. Warranty work has, a certain amount of hours in it and everything. You watch these mechanics.
Yeah,
if it says it's a 3-hour deal, they will come up with a way to get it in an hour to an hour and a half and then try to do a whole bunch of them because they're still getting the 3-hour pay, but they're actually doing it in an hour and a half, and it's being done to standards because it has to be done to standards because if it ain't, it's coming back and you got to fix it because you got paid for it. So they're going to make sure it's done right. And that's all I'm saying is there's ways to incentivize things without it costing a dime on the taxpayer, okay? There's a way to get a good retention going with our law enforcement without it costing a lot of money, okay? Notice I didn't say cost nothing. It's going to cost us something.
Everything costs.
And like I said, here's the thing I can promise, Dan. If you vote for me, Dan, here's what I'm going to promise you. I will make you proud of me. I will do a good job. Will we always be in agreement? No. We've just been sitting here talking, and I think some areas we were kind of differentiating in opinion, but I guarantee you now I'm going to go home just like you did with the rain tax, and I'm going to go read. I get to go read again because I don't know everything, but when I don't know it, I'm going to go look up. So I'm going to make you proud of me on the job that I do. Okay, that's my first promise to you. The second thing is I'm going to make sure that our community is safe. I'm going to work with our law enforcement. I'm going to work with the fire department and the emergency services. And I'm going to add something to this. Homeless and mental health have a direct role in public safety. So we are going to have to address that. Mm-hmm. We are going to have to address it. We're going to have to work real heavy with organizations like the Pavilion and stuff like that. You're exactly right on the facilities. So these are promises that I'm making to you, okay? That's what I'm going to do if you vote for me, Dan. I also promise you I will never step on your constitutional rights. And if you think I do, you let me know because I'm a human being. I'm not a fireman. A fireman is the only person I know that puts his pants on 2 legs at a time. A lot of people don't know that. They jump into them things. But you and me, we put our pants on 1 leg at a time. So I am capable of error, okay? But I'm also capable of correction. A man that can't be corrected will never amount to anything. I believe that everybody wants to do better. I've never met a man that wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to have a bad day and I'm going to be a bad person. No, we get out of the shower, we're walking across, and our puppy pooped on the floor and we stepped in it. That'll ruin your day every time, okay? That cold feeling. I hate to even bring that up, but I was trying to give you an example. Maybe that wasn't a good one. We're late for work. That can give us a bad day too.
Right.
But
it's attitude.
99% of all human beings, we get up, we have a great outlook, and we want to do good. So I always want to do good. But I may have a bad day and make a bad call. Well, I can be corrected. I will not step on your constitutional rights. I will not interfere with them at all. There are some things that we're probably going to have to look at. There's a lot of talk about the single district thing. I promise you I'm going to look at that with an open view. Mm-hmm. What I will not promise you is that I'm going to make the right call every time. I'm not going to make that promise. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make the best call I'm capable of at the time. Another thing I will not promise you is that I will not raise taxes. Anybody that makes that promise is a fool. And let me tell you, if fact and fiction is important in perception. So we keep hearing that we're one of the lowest paying tax brackets in the state. Well, if this is true, that may be part of the problem. And now we've compounded that problem, Dan, by all these overspenditures because we got poor negotiators. Okay? I'm going to make good decisions and vote my way. I'm going to try to influence the other council members so we can be a team and make good decisions. Okay? That's my promise. But I'm not going to promise not to raise taxes because I am going to, the one thing I'm going to focus on heavily. I know I forget how many areas in that 523-page report, but the one thing I'm going to focus on getting the crime, serious crime, brought down in our city. That is something I'm going to focus on. I'm going to work really hard with our law enforcement on that, okay? Because I believe that's the first, and if you read any charter, anything, that's usually one of the first things that particular, at their state level, local level, federal level, whatever level it is, that's usually their first priority is public safety. Right. And that's what I'm going to work on. That is going to be my main deal because to me, that is a problem. The media ain't going to do that. They're not going to tell you that's a problem because they want you talking about trash, something that can be solved. So I'm not going to promise you I'm not going to raise taxes.
Yeah, I think they've solved the trash issue. I think they've taken that on and resolved it, but to my knowledge.
Why haven't we focused on the one that really affects all of us? Okay. And I promise you, when you come, we're going to figure out a way to make it where people can get in front and have their voices be heard. Okay. But I'm not an idiot. I've sat on a lot of boards and everything, and and I know you got people that will talk for hours. So there will have to be some rules.
Sure.
But they don't need to be made to where nobody can talk. Okay. I mean, it's just gotten more and more limited. It's kind of like, when they take one little right away from you, then they take another little, pretty soon you have no rights left. What did the Chinese say? I hate using Chinese in this. Death by 1,000 cuts, paper cuts. That's what they do with your constitutional rights. Yep. They just a little nick at a time.
Well, now the problem is now they're not just doing little paper cuts. They're taking out some pretty good sized knives, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're bad.
So, all right, Rich. Well, thank you for coming by. And do you have a website or anything that people can?
I didn't build a website this time. I just went with the social media platform.
So you've got a Facebook page?
Yeah, I did the Facebook page.
What's your Facebook page?
I think it's Vote Rich Herman. If you punch in Rich Herman, I'm the only one that's going to pop up as a page. I have checked that out. I'll tell you, if you call me, I got 350 signs I need to get rid of pretty quick.
What's your phone number?
806-410-5043. Texting's better. Just text me your address, and I'll show up and stick the sign in your yard. You don't even have to be there. If you want it at your business, I'll come and look at a place where I don't think it'll interfere with your business, and I'll stick it in there. But I need to get the rest of these signs out, and I need to get them out. I think early voting, what did I put out the other day?
April 19th.
Yeah, early voting's going to start, and I need them signs out before then.
The election's May 1.
I've got some people helping me, but they're overwhelmed doing some other things right now. I wasn't thinking when we ordered these more signs, we had my whole living room's nothing but signs right now, Dan. So if you need a sign, 806-410-5043, text me your number. I'll take care of it. If you have a question for me, text me. I'll try to answer your question as best I can. Don't be surprised if it's something that I can't answer real quick that I call you because I have never mastered the art of texting very well. I'm good at doing the LOL and the okay, little short text messages, but I am not good at doing a whole conversation on texting.
Yeah, to me, if people want to have a conversation, call me.
It's quicker.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, well, we thank you for coming by today, and good luck.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate you. And I appreciate this guy taking time out on Easter Sunday. What's your name? Paul, I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate my beautiful wife sitting over there waiting on me. And Dan, I appreciate you coming in on.
Well, we're doing it today, so the voters can be informed and make a good decision.
I hope they do.
So it's all about the voters.
All right, buddy. Thank you, sir. Vote
Appreciate
Rich.
it.